Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. So, guys, you may be wondering, why am I wearing a flannel shirt in July? I'm actually in the middle of a tropical storm right now in New England. It's going through Boston. And apparently, from what I heard, a friend of mine told me that like the subway in New York is starting to flood. So I'm going to try to be quick with this video just in case the power goes out. But I'm gonna tough through it. So here we go. Quick thing I wanted to say. Some of you that are new to my show, you have been putting in the comment section how you found this show. Thank you so much for doing that. That is a tremendous help to me because it really helps me see like where people are finding my channel. So thanks so much for doing that. But I want to get quickly into today's news because Jim Clyburn is at it again, guys. So yes, Representative Jim Clyburn is speaking out again about defunding the police. So we had an interview recently, and I want to go ahead and play that clip for you, tell you my thoughts about it. And then I'm going to show you another clip of a meeting that Clyburn had in his home state of South Carolina that went terribly bad for him. Watch this.
You've been very critical of the party's progressive wing for, quote, sloganeering, you say, with movements like Medicare for All and defund the police. In May, though, Congressman, a focus group study from the polling firm Lake Research Partners found that swing voters paid only a little attention to Republican attacks on socialism or defunding the police, which they viewed as divisive fear-mongering, and that the bigger problem was that many voters didn't have a clear grasp of what the Democratic Party stood for. So is the whole attention on defund the police really a deflection by the party leadership from your own failures? That's what your critics on the left would say.
That is absolutely poppycock. I know what I'm talking about. I'm out here with the voters every day. I did a town hall meeting last night in Jasper County, South Carolina. I can tell you, defund the police is a non-starter, even with black people. And if you don't think that's true, then look at the results of what just happened in New York City's election. So the proof is in the pudding. I know what I'm talking about. I talk to people every day. And defund the police is a chokehold around the Democratic Party. And let me remind you, if you're going to categorize left and right, I'm on the left of my party. Nobody can call me anything but a progressive. And been one all of my life. Met my wife in jail, being progressive. So come on.
And I appreciate that. But Congressman, just on the specific issues, because I know you care strongly about this, when you say defund the police, I'm not talking about the popularity of it. I'm talking about whether it hurt your party. None of the candidates in the November House elections ran on defund the police. You mentioned New York. Not a single New York mayoral candidate ran on defund the police. So I'm not sure why. I mean, I know why Republicans keep going on and on about it. I'm not sure why you seem to think it's such a big problem for your party.
Ask Jimmy Harrison, who was running for the United States Senate here in South Carolina. Just ask him. Ask Abigail Spanberger up in Virginia why I said it. I said it because it's real. It's a real problem. We should stop sloganeering. In 1960, Burn, Baby Burn destroyed our movement. And defund the police will do the same thing to progressive movements today. This kind of sloganeering does us no good.
I take your point on sloganizing. I guess the problem is I watched a lot of Republican attack ads last November. They did mention defund the police. They also mentioned Nancy Pelosi. I'm sure you wouldn't say Nancy Pelosi's to blame for you losing. They mentioned corruption. The problem is Republicans are going to attack you always as socialists and lefties. And I think the problem becomes, are you kind of agreeing with their attack on your own party by talking so much about it? I guess that's the discussion. Last word to you, Congressman.
I know what I feel. I know.
Uh-oh.
One single Democrat to tell me that Nancy Pelosi is a problem. I've had plenty Democrats to tell me defund the police is a problem. So, look, I only know what the facts are.
Let me come out of here, you guys. All right, let me pick apart some of the things that he said in that interview. So you notice that basically The guy that was interviewing him was basically telling Jim Clyburn that, like, dude, you sound like the Republicans right now. That's what you sound like right now. So that's one part. The other part that was really funny to me is when Clyburn said, I'm to the left of people in my party. I'm progressive. Do you want to know why I don't use the term progressive to label myself anymore? It's because people like Jim Clyburn and Joe Kennedy call themselves progressive. You can't be progressive and take money from Big Pharma. And they do that. Clyburn, I told you guys, I graduated from college in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. That's the capital. Clyburn is not progressive. He is a corporate establishment Democrat. I live currently in Massachusetts. Joe Kennedy is not progressive. Joe Kennedy couldn't even beat Ed Markey in the Senate race, and he's a Kennedy. He couldn't even win on his name. And that was the only reason why he was running, by the way. But the reason why Joe Kennedy lost is because young people, we came out heavily in support of Ed Markey because we can see through the BS. We can see through the problems of the two-party system. We can tell when someone who is claiming to be progressive is really progressive. And we knew that Joe Kennedy wasn't. We knew he was just running on being a Kennedy. Fact. The younger people in this state came out overwhelmingly in support of the older candidate. Because we knew that Ed Markey was further to the left than Joe Kennedy. Now, that being said, Ed Markey's not as far left as I would like him to be, but he's further left than Joe Kennedy. And we saw right through that. So that's why I stopped using that term progressive to describe myself. Because you got everybody, all different types of people just throwing this word out there now. So I use the term leftist. You won't hear Clyburn and Kennedy use that term to describe themselves. So that's another thing. He is not progressive. He's lying to you. The third thing that Clyburn mentioned is that he said, look, I talk to people. I talk to people every day. I'm telling you, defund the police is not popular. Two things about that. Did you guys know that during the height of the George Floyd protests, defund the police was actually polling at 80% among Democrats? 80%. 80% of Democrats approved of defunding the police. Clyburn's not going to tell you that. When he says, I'm on the ground, I'm talking to people, who is he talking to? Is he talking to you? He's not talking to me. If he's talking to people in his circle, of course they're going to tell him that they don't approve. They're just like him. I'm going to show you an example of the people that Jim Clyburn talks about. In this next clip that I'm going to show you, now this was sent to me by a subscriber. Thank you very much for that. This is Clyburn in a meeting in his home state of South Carolina. A young man in the meeting challenges Clyburn on reparations and why Clyburn is not pushing Joe Biden on that issue like he is on other issues. What I want you to pay very close attention to when I show you this clip, look at the people in the audience. Watch this. All right, guys, listen to this. At Clyburn's district, where I grew up and live, is in the top 20 poorest of 435 districts in the US. I confront him on this. Reparations, lack of policy specific for Black Americans, holding the President of the United States accountable, and more. Now, this is part 1 of 4. There are 4 clips here that I'm going to merge together and show you. So watch this.
Thank you, Congressman Clyburn, for coming. Too often the politicians that say they speak for us never want to speak to us. So I think we should thank him for being here. We should thank him for being here. Congressman Clyburn.
This is funny because he starts off with a compliment. Guys, I pause real quick. Look at the people in the audience. Look. These are the people that Clyburn is talking to. Where are all the young people? I told you guys, South Carolina has one of the oldest electorates in the country. I know, I lived there. Watch this.
I love this handout, but it's missing one thing, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional, but I want to read it. In 2019, the average, and I know you know these statistics, the average wealth of the average white American family is $188,000. For Black American families, it's only $24,000. Now, I'm Gullah, okay? 80% of rural land, Black land ownership, has been lost since 1969. A white high school dropout has more wealth than a Black college graduate. Per the Accountable USA and the Food and Research Action Center, your district and the district I've grown up in is the 6th poorest district in the United States of America.
Which district? The 6th district?
South Carolina District 6. Now, there's a quote, and maybe that's not true, but there's a quote.
That's not true.
There's a quote that says, I do not, but they backed it up with census data, but there's a quote that says, I do not buy the concept popular in the 1960s, which said, we have suppressed the Black man for 300 years, and the white man is now far ahead in the race for everything our society offers. In order to even the score, we must now give the Black man a head start to even the race. I don't buy that. I'll be damned if I pay for the sins of my forefathers. I don't feel responsible for the sins of my forefathers. I just feel responsible for now. Now, hearing that quote, y'all might think I'm talking about Donald Trump. No, that was Joe Biden. Now, Congressman, you said we know Joe and Joe knows us. And Joe Biden told us that he would have our backs. But since being in office, Joe Biden has signed executive action for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. He has signed executive actions for LGBTQ citizens. He has done executive action for Native Americans. But where's his executive action for Black Americans? Now,
call it out. Call it out.
Now, what a lot of people may not realize, I don't know, but I just learned this. Funny thing, Joe Biden got in office and he repealed a lot of stuff Donald Trump did. For a man who said he wasn't concerned with the sins of forefathers, he's sure repealing past sins of Donald Trump. But what about the biggest sin and the original sin this country committed, which was the brutal enslavement of my people? And after slavery, the race massacres, the violent discrimination that kept us in poverty, the land theft, okay? We, Black Americans, now, since 1865, Black Americans owned only 0.5 wealth in America. Today, we own less than 3%. Since slavery, not much has changed. Joe Biden could easily do executive action and bring back the Freedmen's Bureau, whose job was to close all disparities between Black Americans who are descendants of freedmen.
All right, guys, this is part 3. Listen to this. Hang on with me because this gets really good.
Joe Biden, with just a stroke of a pen, can start a commission to study reparations and implement them. You are a representative. We can't show up everywhere. People say, well, Black people need to organize. We've been organizing since the 1500s. These other groups come in like Asian Americans, and within a few months, they get bills for them. Woo! It's your job to speak up for us. So you say we know Joe and Joe knows us. I don't care what type of heart Joe has. I care about the policies Joe is going to pass. So why is it, Congressman Clyburn, that you do not support reparations and you do not push Joe Biden to at least bring back the Freedmen's Bureau to close all disparities between white Americans and Black Americans? We talk about a crisis at the border. What about the crisis in Black America? That was the difference is The crisis in Black America was inflicted on us externally. America was built on our back, and we still hold this country up on our backs. It's broken every bone in our bodies, and yet it keeps up with our strength. Okay, well, can you please explain why you haven't pushed them then on executive action, specific policies for your people, Black Americans? That's my question, because I don't get it.
What makes you think I haven't?
Because we haven't seen it. I see you on the news, and you talk about every other issue, AAPI, LGBTQ. I watch it. I follow you just to see if you're going to mention Black American issues, and you don't.
Have you ever heard of HR 40?
Yes. HR 40, yes, that lacks direct cash payments and has no specific, that lacks direct cash payments. It lacks specific policies.
All right, guys, this is the last part. Watch this.
The minimum, that a reparations policy for Black Americans.
How do you know what the minimum is?
I'm trying to answer your question. You gonna let me answer it? Where would I start?
Tell me what the minimum is.
The minimum, it is a book called From Here to Equality that you have a copy of because the Mystic Branch NAACP sent you a copy because I called your office. The minimum is explained in that book. At least $11 trillion. Direct cash payments, land allotment, tax exemption, free education, the Freedmen's Bureau returning to close all disparity. That's the minimum. Okay. This country can't bring back all the people they've taken from us, but they can at least make a big down payment, like the $65 billion, give us our $65 trillion.
Woo! What did I tell you? What did I tell you, you guys? Notice how it took the youngest, or looked like the youngest person in that audience to stand up and demand an answer about why he is not pushing Joe Biden on reparations, but he can push him on everything else. It took the young person in that room to bring it out. All of the older Black people in there, notice how they are silent. That is Jim Clyburn's audience. Those are the people that Clyburn is talking to. He's not talking to us. Guys, I'm gonna try to tell you something here. When I interviewed Terrell Anderson, one of the things that he said to me was that, and Terrell Anderson is running for Congress in Alabama. One of the things that he said to me was that young people, we feel forgotten. Nobody is listening to us. No one wants to hear what we have to say. And it's a problem because 25, 30 years from now, all the people that a lot of these establishment politicians are catering towards, the boomers, especially African-American boomers, most of them not going to be here. We'll be the boomers. And they don't want to hear anything we have to say. So this is what I was trying to tell you guys about Clyburn. People ask me like, man, you rag on Clyburn pretty hard. Absolutely. You know why? Because Jim Clyburn is an African-American politician pretending like he's doing something for Black people, and he is not. That's the worst. His district, it's one of the poorest ones in the country. You've been in office all these years. What you do? What has he done? So I say this again. I've said it before. I'll continue to say it multiple times. You have to stop voting for someone just simply because they are Democrat and just simply because they look like us, because they look like Black people. That should not guarantee your vote. But it happens all the time. It happens every election. No reason why Clyburn should still be in office. Clyburn's full of it. And it took the young person to call it out.